Jake Morrison felt small as he walked into the Great Hall. The room was huge, bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Thousands of aliens sat in rows that went up to the ceiling. Some looked like giant insects. Others glowed with strange lights. A few floated in the air without touching anything. The noise was terrible. Clicks and buzzes and sounds that hurt his ears filled the space. Jake wore his best uniform, the one with all his medals from the war against the pirates. But here, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy, he felt like a child. Lisa Carter sat with the other humans in a small section near the back. She was an admiral, one of the best military leaders Earth had ever produced. But even she looked worried as she watched Jake walk to the center of the room. The prime speaker was a creature made of what looked like living glass. It was 12 feet tall and changed colors as it moved. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. "Human Jake Morrison," the creature said. "You speak for your species today." Jake nodded. He had practiced this speech for weeks. Every word was important. The future of humanity depended on what happened in the next few minutes. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Jake began. His voice sounded tiny in the massive room. "Humanity comes before you today to ask for understanding. We have made mistakes. We know this. But we have also tried to be good members of this council." A sound like breaking glass came from the alien crowd. Jake realized it was laughter, but not the good kind. The prime speaker raised one of its long arms. The noise stopped immediately. "The council has reviewed humanity's actions over the past 5 years," it said. "The evidence is clear. Your species has broken the peaceful coexistence accord 17 times. You have built military ships without permission. You have claimed territory that was not yours to take. You have refused to follow council laws." Jake felt his heart racing. This was not going well. "But we only built ships to protect our colonies," Jake said. "The pirates were attacking our people. The council fleet was too far away to help us." "You should have waited," the prime speaker replied. "You should have asked for permission. You should have followed proper procedures." "Our people were dying," Jake said, his voice getting louder. "We couldn't wait for paperwork while families were being killed." The alien crowd made angry sounds. Lisa Carter closed her eyes. She knew Jake had just made things worse. The prime speaker's color changed to a deep red. "This is exactly the problem with humans. You act first and think later. You believe your way is always right. You refuse to accept that others might know better." Jake wanted to argue, but he could see it was hopeless. The decision had already been made before he walked into this room. "The Galactic Council has voted," the prime speaker announced. "The result is final. Humanity is expelled from the council. All trade agreements are canceled. All military cooperation is ended. All human colonies must leave council space within 30 days. The sound that followed was like thunder. Thousands of aliens made noises of approval. Some banged on the walls. Others flashed bright lights. Jake stood in the center of it all, feeling the weight of failure on his shoulders. He had been sent here to save humanity's place in the galaxy. Instead, he had just watched his species get thrown out like garbage. Furthermore, the prime speaker continued when the noise died down, "Any species that helps humanity will also face punishment. Any world that trades with humans will lose council protection. Any government that gives aid to human colonies will be considered an enemy of the council." Lisa Carter felt sick. This was worse than expulsion. This was total isolation. The council was not just throwing humanity out. They were making sure no one else would help them either. The gavel came down with a sound like a gunshot. It was over. On Earth, President Helen Brooks sat in her office waiting for news. The room was quiet except for the tick of an old clock on the wall. Danny Walsh, her closest advisor, paced back and forth by the window. The communication screen finally lit up. Jake's face appeared, looking tired and defeated. "Madam President," he said, "I'm sorry. They voted us out. 30 days to leave council. Space. No trade. No military cooperation. They've isolated us completely." Helen listened without speaking. When Jake finished his report, she was quiet for a long time. Danny stopped pacing. "What do we do now?" he asked. Helen stood up and walked to the big window that looked out over Washington. People walked on the streets below, going about their normal lives. They had no idea that everything had just changed. "They think they've beaten us," Helen said slowly. "They believe that without their protection, without their trade, we'll come crawling back in a year, begging them to take us back." She turned around and Danny saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before. It was not fear or sadness. It was anger, but cold and controlled. "Get Paul Harrison on the line," Helen ordered. "And Rita Stone. Tell them to come here immediately. We have work to do." "What kind of work?" Danny asked. Helen smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been challenged and was ready to fight back. "The kind of work that happens when you corner a dangerous animal," she said. "The council just learned something about humans that they should have known already. We don't give up. We don't surrender. And we don't forgive." She picked up her phone and started making calls. Within an hour, the most powerful people on Earth would be in this room, planning humanity's response to exile. The council thought they had ended the human problem. In reality, they had just created something much bigger and much more dangerous than they could imagine. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what happened when you backed them into a corner. Leo Grant pulled his ship closer to the dark asteroid. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart was beating fast. One wrong move and the rocks floating around him would crush his ship like an egg. The cargo hold behind him was full of grain from the farming colonies. At least that's what his papers said. Hidden under the grain were things that could get him killed if the council found them. Communication devices, weapon parts, and sealed orders from Earth that no one was supposed to see. 6 months had passed since the council threw humanity out of the galaxy. 6 months since they told every human colony to pack up and leave. But Leo knew something the council didn't know. Humans were very good at hiding things. His radio crackled with a coded message. "Delivery truck, this is the grocery store. Do you have fresh vegetables?" Leo smiled. It was the signal he had been waiting for. "Grocery store, I have the best tomatoes in the sector. Permission to dock?" Permission granted. "Bay 7 is open." The asteroid split open like a flower. Hidden doors revealed a docking bay carved deep into the rock. Leo guided his ship inside and the doors closed behind him. From the outside, it looked like just another piece of space junk. From the inside, it was a secret base. Rita Stone was waiting for him when he stepped off his ship. She had been a government worker on Earth before the exile. Now she was something much more important. She was the person in charge of keeping humanity alive while they were banned from the galaxy. "What did you bring us this time?" Rita asked. Leo opened the hidden panels in his cargo hold. Inside were boxes of equipment that looked simple, but were actually very advanced. Quantum communicators from the research station at Alpha Centauri, power cells from New Tokyo, and this. He handed her a small data chip. "Orders from Earth. They want to move to Phase 2. Rita plugged the chip into her reader. Her eyes got wide as she read the message. "They want us to build what?" she asked. "You read it right," Leo said. "A whole new government, not just for humans, for anyone who wants to be free from the council." Rita walked over to a big window that looked out into space. Through the glass, she could see ships moving between asteroids. Human ships, but also others. Some were from species that had secretly left the council. Others were from groups that the council had never accepted in the first place. "Nick," she called to her assistant. "Come look at this." Nick Torres had been a soldier before the exile. Now he helped Rita coordinate the secret network that was growing throughout the galaxy. He looked at the orders and whistled softly. "They're serious about this," he said. "Building a whole new alliance. That's not hiding anymore. That's war." "No," Rita said. "It's better than war. It's giving people a choice." She walked over to a computer that showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked places where humans were supposed to be gone, but green dots showed where they really were. There were a lot more green dots than red ones. Look at this, Rita said, pointing to the screen. The council thinks we retreated to a few hidden colonies. They think we're barely surviving. But we're not retreating. We're expanding. The map showed the truth. Human settlements were spread across dozens of star systems. Some were old colonies that had officially broken ties with Earth to avoid council punishment. But secretly, they were sending supplies and information to the growing network. Other settlements were completely new, built in places the council didn't know about or didn't care about. Places like this asteroid base, hidden in the middle of nowhere but connected to everywhere else. How many people do we have now? Nick asked. Rita pulled up another screen. Numbers flowed across it like water. 47 million humans in the network. But that's not the best part. We also have 12 million non-humans. Species that left the council to join us, refugees that the council rejected, pirates and traders who never followed anyone's rules anyway. Leo whistled. That's more people than some council member worlds have. Exactly, Rita said. The council thinks they got rid of a problem by throwing us out. But we weren't the problem. We were the solution. And now we're building something better than what they have. She showed them more numbers. Food production from the farming worlds, metal and rare elements from the mining colonies, energy from the power stations built around distant stars, manufacturing from hidden factories that worked day and night. Steve Campbell sends his regards, Leo said, pulling out another data. Show the mining operation at Kepler is ahead of schedule. They're pulling rare metals out of the ground faster than anyone thought possible. Rita plugged in the chip and smiled at what she saw. This is enough material to build 50 more ships, big ones. Steve says his workers are motivated, Leo continued. Most of them used to work for council companies. They got fired when the companies were told not to hire humans. Now they're working for us and they're angry about how they were treated. Nick pulled up another screen that showed ship construction. The hidden shipyards are working around the clock. We'll have our first battle fleet ready in 3 months. What about the special project? Rita asked. Nick's expression got serious. Paul Harrison says it's going better than expected. The new technology is working. When we reveal it, the council is going to be very surprised. Rita nodded. Paul Harrison had been Earth's top military scientist before the exile. Now he was working on something that would change everything. She didn't know all the details, but she knew it would give humanity an advantage the council couldn't match. Any word from the spy networks? She asked. Leo grinned. The council is arguing among themselves. Some species are starting to wonder if throwing us out was a good idea. Trade is down because they can't get human products anymore. Shipping is slower because human pilots knew the best routes. And the pirates are getting bolder because the council fleet is spread too thin. Good, Rita said. The more problems they have, the more people will start looking for alternatives. She walked back to the window and looked out at the ships moving through the asteroid field. Each one carried supplies, information, or people between the hidden settlements. Each one was proof that humanity had not given up. They wanted to isolate us, she said. They thought we would wither away and die without their help. But isolation is just another word for independence, and independence is what humans do best. Nick joined her at the window. When do we reveal ourselves? Rita smiled. It was the same cold smile that President Helen Brooks had worn 6 months ago. Soon, very soon, the council is about to learn that when you try to destroy something, you better make sure you finish the job. Because if you don't, it comes back, stronger than before. Outside, another ship arrived at the hidden base, then another. The network was growing, one ship and one person at a time. The council thought humanity was gone, but humanity was just getting started. Admiral Zaraketh stared at the report on her desk for the 3rd time. 3 more council ships had vanished near the outer rim of known space. Just like the others, they had simply disappeared without sending any distress signals. The alien admirals' forearms drummed nervously on her desk. In 30 years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. Ships didn't just vanish. There were always traces, always wreckage, always something left behind. Sir, her aide said, walking into the office. We found the crew of the Starlight Beacon. Zaraketh looked up quickly. The Starlight Beacon was a patrol ship that had gone missing 2 weeks ago. Where? On a small planet called Refuge, They were found by a trading ship sitting in a medical facility. All alive, all healthy, but they don't remember what happened to them. None of them? No, sir. The last thing they remember is their ship detecting an unknown signal. Then they woke up in clean beds with their injuries treated. Someone had even fixed the medical problems that some of them had for years. Zaraketh felt a chill run through her body. What about their ship? Gone. But sir, there's something else. The crew said whoever took them was very polite. They were given good food, comfortable rooms, and medical care. It was like they were guests, not prisoners. This was the strangest part of all. The missing ships were always found stripped of their advanced technology. Their weapons, their navigation, computers, their communication systems, all gone. But the crews were always found safe and well treated somewhere else. It's like someone is collecting our technology, Zaraketh said to herself, but they don't want to hurt anyone. Her aide nodded. The pattern is always the same. Ships vanish. Crews are found safe a few days later on some remote world, and the ships are never seen again. Any idea who's doing this? No, sir. But there are rumors. Zaraketh raised an eyebrow. What kind of rumors? Some of the traders are talking about strange ships they've seen, ships that don't match any known design. They say these ships are fast, very advanced, and they don't attack anyone. They just watch and then disappear. The Admiral was about to ask more questions when her communication system buzzed. Sir, we have a ship requesting emergency docking. It's a human vessel. Zaraketh was surprised. Humans were banned from Council space. Any human ship found here would normally be arrested. But this was an emergency request, and military law said they had to help ships in distress. Let them dock, she ordered, but put security teams on alert. An hour later, Betty Lewis sat in the station's main briefing room. She was a human smuggler who had been working the Outer Rim for years. Before the exile, she had been a regular visitor to Council stations. Now she was risking her life just being here. I know I'm not supposed to be in Council space, Betty said. But you need to see this. She activated a small recording device. The room's main screen lit up with an image that made everyone gasp. It was a space station, but unlike anything they had ever seen. It was huge, easily the size of a small moon. Its design was sleek and efficient, with no wasted space. Platforms dotted its surface, but they were unlike any weapons in Council databases. This is New Geneva Station, Betty said. It's the first of 12 facilities like this. The humans built it in less than a year. Impossible, Zaraketh said. Humans don't have the technology to build something like this. Betty smiled. They do now. And it gets better. Watch this. The recording showed ships approaching the station, dozens of them, all with the same sleek design as the station itself. But these weren't just human ships. Some of them carried markings from species that Zaraketh recognized. Those are Andromedan ships, she said, and Centauri vessels. What are they doing with humans? Trading, Betty said simply. The humans are offering better deals than the Council ever did. No bureaucracy, no cultural requirements, no tribute payments. Just honest trade between equals, though mice. Recording continued, showing more ships arriving and leaving. The traffic around the station was constant, like a busy trade hub. But this wasn't just any trade hub. This was something that shouldn't exist. How many people know about this? Zaraketh asked. More every day. The humans aren't hiding anymore. They're sending representatives to systems across the galaxy. They're offering membership in something they call the Free Systems Alliance. Zaraketh felt her world shifting. The Council had thrown humanity out, expecting them to disappear or come crawling back. Instead, they had built something that looked more advanced than anything the Council had. What do they want? She asked. Betty stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Council ships moved in their usual patterns, following rules that had been the same for hundreds of years. They want to give people a choice, Betty said. Stay with the Council and follow their rules, or join the Alliance and be free to make your own decisions. And people are choosing the Alliance? 17 star systems have already left the Council. 43 more are considering it. And those are just the ones we know about. Zaraketh's communication system buzzed urgently. Her aide's voice came through sounding panicked. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the sector. The Rigel system has declared independence from the Council. So has the Vega colony. And the Tauseti government is holding a vote next week." Betty nodded sadly. "It's already started. The humans aren't invading or conquering. They're just offering a better way to live. And people are taking it." "Why are you telling us this?" Zaraketh asked. "Because you seem like decent people, and because what's coming next is going to be big. The humans are about to make a formal announcement to the entire galaxy. When they do, everything is going to change." Betty gathered her things and headed for the door. "You can arrest me if you want, but it won't change what's happening. The Council's time is ending, and the Alliance's time is beginning." After Betty left, Zaraketh sat alone in the briefing room staring at the image of New Geneva Station. She had spent her entire career serving the Council, believing in their mission to bring order to the galaxy, but now she was looking at something that might be better than order. Something that might be freedom. Her communication system buzzed again. This time it was a message from Council headquarters. The emergency session had been called. Every military commander in the galaxy was being summoned to discuss the human problem. Zaraketh smiled grimly. The Council was finally waking up to what was happening. But she wondered if it was already too late. Outside her window she could see merchant ships changing course, heading away from Council space toward the outer rim, toward the humans and their new alliance. The galaxy was choosing sides and the Council was losing. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the ANS Liberty, looking out at the fleet that surrounded New Geneva Station. 50 warships floated in perfect formation, each one representing the best technology humanity had ever built. Behind them, the massive station gleamed in the light of the local star. Today was the day they would tell the galaxy that humanity was back. "Admiral," her communication officer said, "all networks are ready. We'll be broadcasting to every inhabited system in the galaxy." Lisa nodded. She wore a new uniform today, one that bore the symbol of the Free Systems Alliance instead of Earth's old flag. The design was simple but powerful, a circle of stars representing unity, with an open hand in the center representing friendship. "Begin transmission," she ordered. Across the galaxy, beings stopped what they were doing as the signal reached their worlds. On Council worlds, government officials rushed to their communication centers. On independent planets, families gathered around their screens. Even on remote colonies at the edge of known space, people watched as the broadcast began. Lisa stepped forward, her image appearing on billions of screens throughout the galaxy. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm and strong. 18 months ago, the Galactic Council expelled humanity from their organization. They believed that isolation would force us to submit to their authority. They were wrong. Behind her, the great windows of the station showed the impressive fleet. Ships that were clearly more advanced than anything the Council possessed. Designs that seemed to flow like water, with weapons that hummed with barely contained power. "We did not come to you as conquerors," Lisa continued. "We did not come as beggars. We came to offer you something the Council never could, a real choice." On the agricultural world of Eden Prime, Joe Patterson watched the broadcast with 6 alien representatives who had come seeking trade agreements. The aliens were from species that had never been accepted into the Council. Now they were seeing what humanity could offer instead. The Free Systems Alliance welcomes all species who believe in cooperation rather than control, Lisa said. Who believe that every civilization has the right to determine its own future. Who believe that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. One of the alien representatives, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, leaned forward. "This is very different from Council membership," he said to Joe. Joe nodded. "No bureaucracy, no cultural requirements, no tribute payments, just mutual cooperation and defense." On the screen, Lisa was explaining the Alliance's principles. "We offer protection to those who need it, trade to those who want it, and friendship to all who seek it. But we ask for nothing in return except the same respect we give to you." The response was immediate. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, Lisa's communication board lit up with messages from across the galaxy. Star systems requesting membership, species asking for trade agreements, entire governments wanting to know more about this new alliance. In the council chambers, chaos had erupted. The emergency session had been called, but half the member species were too busy dealing with their own problems to attend. The Rigel Commerce Guild was facing massive protests as their people demanded to know why they weren't allowed to trade with the alliance. The Centauri Collective had already announced they were leaving the council. Prime Speaker Zara Prime tried to maintain order as reports flooded in. The humans have violated every law of galactic civilization, it announced. They are building an illegal military force. They are interfering with council authority. They must be stopped. But even as it spoke, more reports arrived. The Tau Ceti system had voted to join the alliance. The Vega colonies were holding their own referendum. 3 more species had formally withdrawn from the council. Trade Administrator Vel 9 stood up, its metallic body clanking as it moved. The economic situation is desperate, it reported. We're losing trade partners faster than we can count them. The alliance is offering better terms than we ever did. What kind of terms? Demanded a representative from the Altair system. No oversight. Fees. No cultural compliance requirements, no restrictions on internal government. They're simply asking for mutual defense agreements and fair trade practices. The room fell silent. These were things the council had never offered. For centuries, council membership had come with layers of bureaucracy, cultural requirements, and tribute payments that many species found burdensome. How many systems have we lost? Asked the Prime Speaker. Vel 9 consulted its datapad. 87 full defections. Over 300 associate membership applications for the alliance, and the numbers are growing every hour. Back on New Geneva Station, President Helen Brooks was meeting with her new cabinet. The irony wasn't lost on her. Humanity had been expelled for being too independent, and now most of the galaxy was following their example. Maria, she said to her Secretary of Interstellar Affairs, what's our current status? Maria Rodriguez, who had once been a mining colony supervisor, now oversaw relations with hundreds of worlds. 112 full member systems, 437 associate members, over 800 applications pending review. And the council's response? They're panicking. Our intelligence sources report emergency meetings, military buildups, and desperate attempts to keep their remaining members from leaving. Helen walked to the great window of her office, looking out at the bustling station. Ships from dozens of species were docked at the various levels. Beings that had never worked together before were now cooperating on joint projects. Secretary Walsh, she said to her old advisor who had followed her from Earth, what do our polls show? Danny Walsh smiled as he read from his tablet. Approval ratings across Alliance space are at 93%. People are happier, more prosperous, and more secure than they were under Council rule. The reason was simple. The Alliance had learned from the Council's mistakes. Instead of imposing one-size-fits-all solutions, they allowed each member system to govern itself as it saw fit. Instead of demanding tribute, they created mutual aid programs. Instead of cultural requirements, they celebrated diversity, the Umatider. Most interesting development, Maria added, is that we're getting applications from species that were never part of the Council, groups that were considered too primitive or too different. They're finding that the Alliance accepts them as they are. Helen nodded. This had been part of their plan from the beginning. The Council had always been exclusive, accepting only species that met their narrow criteria. The Alliance was inclusive, welcoming anyone who wanted to be part of a community of equals. What about military strength? Helen asked. General Alex Murphy, her military advisor, pulled up a holographic display. We now have defense agreements with over 200 systems. Our combined fleet is larger than the Council's, and our technology is significantly more advanced. Any signs that the Council is planning military action? Intelligence suggests they're considering it, but they're also aware that such action would likely drive even more of their members to defect to us. Helen smiled. The Council was trapped. If they used force, they would prove that the Alliance was right about them being oppressive. If they didn't use force, they would continue to lose members until they collapsed entirely. "Ma'am," Maria said, looking at her communication panel, "we're getting a priority message from the Andromedan Federation. They want to schedule a formal ceremony to join the Alliance." "How formal?" "They want to do it in front of representatives from 1,000 worlds. They're calling it the New Geneva Accords, a new charter for galactic civilization." Helen felt a surge of pride. 18 months. Ego humanity had been cast out of galactic society. Now they were creating a new society that was attracting most of the galaxy. "Schedule it," she said, "and make sure the council is invited. They should see what real cooperation looks like." Outside the station, more ships were arriving every hour. The Alliance was growing so fast that they were having trouble keeping up with all the membership applications. It was a good problem to have. The galaxy had tried to silence humanity. Instead, they had taught humanity to create a chorus of voices singing in harmony, and that song was drowning out the old order. The war lasted exactly 18 hours and 12 minutes. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the ANS Liberty, watching as 3,000 council ships approached the edge of Alliance space. They came in massive formations representing the combined military might of what remained of the Galactic Council. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Sam Burke from his position at the tactical station, "Council forces are crossing the perimeter, reading 2,800 vessels across 20 battle groups." Lisa studied the display with calm eyes. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly and efficiently. These were people from a dozen different species, all working together as one team. Humans, Andromedans, former Council citizens who had chosen freedom over security. "Signal all Alliance ships," Lisa ordered. "Implement Operation Homecoming." What happened next would be talked about for generations across the galaxy. The Council fleet had expected to face desperate humans hiding behind asteroid fields and makeshift defenses. Instead, they found themselves confronting something that should not have existed. The Alliance fleet was not just larger than expected, it was using technology that seemed impossible. Council Admiral Vex Tar commanded the lead battle group from his flagship, the Domination. He had fought in dozens of battles over his long career, but he had never seen anything like what appeared on his screens. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human ships are not following any known combat patterns. Their formations are completely wrong." Vex Tar looked at the display. The Alliance ships were spread out in loose groups, not the tight formations that military doctrine required. It looked like chaos. "Easy targets," he said. "Begin the attack." The Council fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward the Alliance ships. It should have been the end of the human rebellion. Instead, something impossible happened. The Alliance ships simply absorbed the attacks. Their shields didn't spark or weaken. They didn't even flicker. The most powerful weapons the Council possessed had no effect at all. "Impossible," Vex Tar whispered. "Our weapons are hitting them. I can see the impacts. Why aren't they taking damage?" His science officer looked up from his console, fear in his eyes. "Sir, their shields are adapting. Every time we hit them, their defenses get stronger against that type of weapon." Before Vex Tar could respond, the Alliance ships began their counterattack. But this wasn't the brutal assault he had expected. Instead of destroying Council ships, the Alliance weapons seemed designed to disable them. Across the Council fleet, ships found their engines shutting down. Their weapons stopped working, their communication systems went silent, but their life support remained active. Their crew quarters stayed comfortable, their medical bays continued to function. "They're not trying to kill us," Vex Tar realized. "They're capturing us alive." On the Liberty, Lisa watched as Council ship after Council ship went dead in space. Her fleet moved through the enemy formation like dancers, each ship knowing exactly where to be and when to be there. The coordination was perfect because they had trained for this moment for months. "Status report," she called. "First battle group is neutralized," reported Sam. "Second and third groups are surrendering. The remaining groups are trying to retreat, but our ships are faster. Any casualties?" "None on our side. Minor injuries reported on 17 council ships, all from crew members who panicked and hurt themselves. Our medical teams are all ready, providing assistance. Lisa nodded. This had been the plan from the beginning. Humanity had learned something important during their exile. Violence created more problems than it solved. Better to show strength through restraint than through destruction. Within 6 hours, the entire council fleet was disabled. Within 12 hours, all crew members had been safely evacuated. Within 18 hours, the war was over. Admiral Vex Tar found himself sitting in a comfortable chair on the Liberty's main conference room. He had expected to be thrown into a prison cell or worse. Instead, he had been given medical attention for a minor injury, a good meal, and a clean uniform to replace his damaged one. Lisa Carter sat across from him, still wearing her Alliance Admiral's uniform. But her expression was not one of a conqueror. It was the look of someone who was genuinely sad about what had happened. "Why?" Vex Tar asked. "Why didn't you destroy us? We came here to wipe out your Alliance. We came here to force you back under Council control." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Because that's not who we are," she said finally. "You came here because you were afraid. The Council told you that we were a threat to galactic peace. But the only thing we're a threat to is the old way of doing things." She activated a display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red areas marked the few remaining Council worlds. Green areas showed Alliance territory. The green areas covered most of the map. "Look at this," Lisa said. "In 2 years we've grown from a handful of exiled humans to an alliance of over 600 worlds. We didn't conquer any of them. We didn't force any of them to join. They came to us because we offered them something better." Vex Tar studied the map. He had to admit that the Alliance territory looked prosperous. Reports from his intelligence service had confirmed that Alliance worlds had higher living standards, better trade, and more personal freedom than most Council worlds. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you go home," Lisa said. "Your ships will be repaired and returned to you. Your crews will be treated well until we can arrange safe passage back to Council space. And you can tell your leaders that this war is over." "You're just letting us go?" "We're proving a point. We could have destroyed your fleet. We could have invaded Council worlds. We could have done to you what you tried to do to us. But we didn't. Because that's not the kind of civilization we want to build." 3 days later, President Helen Brooks stood in the Great Assembly Hall of New Geneva Station. Representatives from over 800 worlds filled the massive space. Some were from species that had left the Council. Others were from groups that had never belonged to any galactic government before. At the front of the room sat a small group of former Council leaders, including Zara Prime, the old Prime Speaker. They had survived the political collapse that followed the military disaster and had come seeking terms. "The Free Systems Alliance formally accepts the surrender of the Galactic Council," Helen announced. "But we offer something better than conquest. We offer partnership." She gestured to the Alliance flag that hung behind her, the circle of stars with the open hand of friendship. "Any former Council world that wishes to join the Alliance is welcome. Any species that wants to remain independent is free to do so. The age of forced compliance is over. The age of voluntary cooperation has begun." Zara Prime stood up slowly. The proud being that had once expelled humanity from the galaxy now looked small and tired. "I must ask," it said, "when you were exiled, did you plan all of this?" Helen smiled. The same expression she had worn 2 years ago when the exile began. "We didn't plan to be thrown out," she said, "but we planned for what we would do if it happened. You see, you made one mistake about humanity. You thought being cast out would break us. But humans have a saying, 'Home is where the heart is.' You didn't banish us from our home. You freed us to build a better one." As the ceremony ended and the new galactic charter was signed, the Alliance flag was raised over a fleet of ships representing hundreds of worlds. The Council still existed, but only as a small regional government controlling fewer than 50 systems. The Free Systems Alliance had become the dominant power in the galaxy, not through conquest, but through offering something that beings had always wanted: the freedom to choose their own destiny. The exile was over. The real journey had just begun.